Welcome to Baking with Laino. Hello, my name is Laine, and I'm going to teach you today how to bake a loaf of bread. I'm also going to show you how not to do it and how far you can screw it up and not destroy the finished product. We begin with the basic ingredients: flour, water, yeast, sugar, vegetable oil, and eggs. First, you add the water to the bowl. This is very warm water, not hot. If it's too hot, it'll kill the yeast. Then you add 2 teaspoons of quick rise yeast. I usually guess. Mix those two together thoroughly, dissolving the yeast in the hot water. When it is mixed thoroughly, then you begin to add the flour. This is not self-rising flour, this is unbleached white flour. We start with about 2 cups out of the 4 that the recipe calls for, and I mix. Now this is where I messed up. Usually this is where the eggs and the sugar and the oil are added, but I kept going, and then I realized, oops, yeah, it's called for 3 eggs and 2 tablespoons of oil. After tasting it, salted butter would have been better than the oil. I'm doing that wrong. You're supposed to break eggs into a separate container in case you get shells in it, but my family could use the calcium, so it's alright. Three eggs. Back to mixing. It was kind of sloppy because I didn't add the eggs when everything else was still a little bit wet. But the other side of that is the yeast had a chance to feed a little bit on the flour, and the flour had a chance to develop a little bit of gluten before the oils are added. And I've noticed lately I've been adding the butter to another recipe, and it has made it much more elastic. It actually kind of enhances the process. It makes it a little bit more of a chewy bread, better for sandwiches. It's just a little messier in the making. That is most of the rest of the flour. Now to bring it all together. It was kind of grainy. It was kind of a little bit like mixing a batter and a dough, and it was. But eventually it starts coming together. This could be done with a bread machine. It is a bread machine recipe, but I prefer to do it myself. Here's the last bit of the flour, and then it gets turned out onto the counter. To pull it away from the sides of the bowl. It had become very gooey in places, but like I said, it's still good for the end product. Some kneading together. There's some little crumbly bits at the bottom. And the oven is set to 200 degrees. I heat up the baking stone in the bottom of the oven. For the rising time, it extends the amount of time that the oven holds heat. There we go. Nearly all of the crumbs in the bottom of the bowl have been picked up, so I opened the sticky inside of the bread and kind of silly puttied it into the finished dough. Almost done. Very sticky, very, very elastic dough. Now it's time to bring it out. Right here, this bread is very happy, very elastic. It should rest for about 5 minutes before I do this next kneading because of how it was mixed with the wet stuff after half of the flour went in. It looks nice and elastic. It's doing okay. Put a little bit of oil in the bowl. Rub the top of the dough in the oil, and then the sides and the bottom, smooth it out. It goes into the oven, which has been turned off, and it's placed under a damp towel to rise until double. Spray the baking pan with nonstick spray, making sure to get plenty of nonstick spray in the corners of the pan. Now the dough is risen until about double. And this is the dough. It's very foamy, kind of gooey, but not very sticky. This would make an excellent pizza dough. So take it out, put it on the counter, spread it into about a cookie sheet sized rectangle, and then roll it up. This stretches the gluten again and shapes it so that when it's sliced, the bubbles are evenly dispersed. Pinch it together, pull the ends together. It's very elastic. You just kind of press it into the pan and put it in the oven to rise. The oven was turned on again to 200 to warm the stone again, so this should take maybe 20 minutes before turning the oven on to bake. "30 minutes later, the dough has risen, and because the dough is moist, we have those little bubbles you can see on the side. That you can tell is going to be it's a wet dough, which means the top is going to fall in a little bit. The oven was set to about 350. It's brown. Should sound hollow when you tap it. See how the top has sunken in a little bit. I twist the pan to break free the edges, and there you have it. It has a good toasted color on the bottom, so I don't have to put it on the bottom of the oven on the baking stone to finish the cooking process. And all we have to do is cover it with the same damp towel and let it cool. This loaf was a little crumbly, but sturdy enough for sandwiches. And it held up to butter just fine. Thank you for joining me in this process of how to ruin bread, but not entirely. Happy cooking!